session. Welcome to day 4 of the Virtual Island Summit. I am proud to be presenting this session today. This is a topic that is very close at heart for all of us here at Island Innovation. My name is Christian Sakino. I am the Chief of Staff and Technology Lead here, originally from Margarita Island in the Caribbean, but I am now based in the beautiful coastal city of Vigo in the northwest of Spain, close to the Portuguese border. I am very happy to be moderating this session called Island Sustainability in the Round, Exploring Circular Economies. Before we begin with the session, please take a moment to respond to the poll that is going to appear right now on your screens so we can get to know you better. We want to know what region you are connecting from. We have all regions represented in the poll. And if you scroll down below, you will see a choice for your sector, the sector that you work with, and the industry that you belong to. So please take a few minutes to respond. And I'm seeing a lot of participation in the chat, so thank you for that as well. While you answer the poll and introduce yourself in the chat, please let me share some thoughts about this session. In the midst of growing environmental challenges and resource constraints, islands are forging a path towards sustainable futures through circular economies. And circular economies are proving to be a game changer for islands worldwide. By embracing practices like recycling, upcycling, and reusing, these communities are redefining how they interact with their environments. Scarce resources are no longer a hindrance, but a catalyst for innovation. It is not only to preserve an island's natural wonders, it's also for that all islands can flourish in the process. From the Caribbean to the Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and the Pacific, islands are leading the charge in showing the world what a circular economy is. It's not just about less waste, it's about more opportunity, more resilience, and a brighter, more sustainable future for all. In this session, we will explore the challenges that islands face, such as limited space, resource dependencies, waste management issues, and we will discover the practical steps, inspiring stories and projects, and collaborative strategies that are not only reducing environmental footprints, but also fostering economic resilience and prosperity for islands. Thank you so much for responding to the poll. Let's take a look at the results. So we have a large contingency from my beautiful Caribbean region, and I say hello to everyone in the Caribbean right now, and followed closely by Europe. So I am rooting for both regions now, Caribbean and Europe. So thank you for representing us here. But we are very happy to have people from Asia and the Pacific, considering that it's super late or super early, depending on where you are located. So we appreciate you joining us here. And we also want to commend the people from North America, South and Central America, and Africa that are in this session. Thank you all for attending. The sector that you belong to, we see a range of people from the private sector with almost 40%, but the rest of the people that are here, the 60%, is equally divided, let's say, between NGOs, the government, academia, and other sectors. And as far as the industry goes, we have a large contingency from environmental services, oceans conservation, waste, and circular economy. These three sectors make up for 45% of the attendees, which makes sense because we are on a circular economy session. Thank you so much for attending. But we also have people from the energy sector, from the politics sector, tourism, agriculture, and management consulting. Thank you so much for joining us. I would invite you to keep using the chat function, not only to introduce yourself and let us know where you're joining from, but also please make any comments during the sessions. You will find important information from our Island Innovation staff in the chat, so please take a look at that information that is going to be shared. And I also invite you to use the Q&A function for your questions. We will have a Q&A section after the presentations, so please make sure to ask any questions that you see fit so our esteemed panelists can answer them. Without further ado, let me introduce our keynote speaker for this session. And we have the Minister of Industry, Energy and Technology of the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador, Mr. Andrew Parsons. The floor is all yours. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm hoping everybody can hear me okay. Thank you so much for the invitation, and hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Parsons. I am the Minister for Industry, Energy, and Technology, and I'm here today on behalf of Premier Dr. Andrew Furey, who sends his regrets. Speaking to you today from North America's oldest and most eastern city, St. John's, which is the capital of our province, Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, we're here today talking about circular economies, and I can tell you this is nothing new to us here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Living on an island in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean means there was a time when a circular economy was all that we knew. When you look at the definition, one where there's a focus on reusing, repairing, refurbishing, and recycling existing materials while letting nothing go to waste, that was the way things were done here in Newfoundland and Labrador. I mean, even 50 years ago, many people in our coastal communities couldn't be sure when the next supply ship was coming. They had to make do with what was available. We know that endless resource extraction and waste, the linear economy is not a long-term option. And any of those living on islands, we are well positioned to be leaders as we transition to circular economies where waste instead becomes another resource. We also know that we have to find new and clean carbon-free forms of renewable energy because of the threat of climate change. Now, given our location, we are seeing it firsthand. Just about a year ago, my hometown on the southwest corner of this province, a town called Port aux Basques, was devastated. We were hit by Hurricane Fiona, and we're still feeling the impacts of that. And so we understand how important it is to think globally, but to act locally on these issues. So to that end, we are now working as a province to position ourselves as a leader when we talk about energy transition. We know that's underway, and we've made a provincial commitment to become net zero by 2050. We're working to create that circular energy economy, which is built on hydroelectricity for us, as well as wind and hydrogen. Any economy whatsoever needs energy to work. Now, we as a province here in Newfoundland and Labrador, we're fortunate that we already have an abundant supply of hydroelectricity. Of the electricity we generate, about 90% is coming from renewable sources, either hydro or wind, and we're on track as it stands to hit 98% by 2030. So having that clean renewable energy is very enticing when we look to industries that want to come here, they want to set up shop in our province. When we talk about wind and hydrogen, we have clean energy here for those who want to tap into it, but energy export is going to be an essential part of this more global economy, the circular economy. One of the ways that we want to do that is through wind hydrogen projects. If there's one renewable resource that we have in abundance here in the North Atlantic, it is wind. We have some of the best onshore wind resources in North America. They can power wind turbines, generate electricity, whether it's industrial users or whether customers. Export through transmission lines, and the production or export of hydrogen/ammonia. So earlier this year, we actually gave 4 companies their first stage of approval to begin building wind turbines around the island portion of our province. Once the proper regulatory and environmental assessments and requirements have been met, these companies will start the conversion of the endless power of wind into storable, transportable energy sources, again, hydrogen and ammonia. They'll be doing so in a zero carbon emission way. Because we are so close to Europe and we have plenty of harbors, we are positioned to ship this energy over to Europe or to ports along the eastern seaboard. Before long, we want to see ships that are powered by the same fuel that they are carrying. We've signed MOUs with the Port of Rotterdam, and Canada as a whole has an agreement with Germany for a transatlantic supply corridor. Now, it's important to remember that these economies do not in any way prohibit economic growth. Quite the opposite. The more we are focusing on sustainable and green and circular economies, the more opportunities that arise to everyone's benefit. We believe that these economies are possible at smaller scale, and we're nurturing circular economies at the community level. So one of the clients we actually have in our department is a group called the Shorefast Foundation, which is on Fogo Island, which is an island off of Newfoundland Island. You may have heard, some of you may have heard, it's a world famous Fogo Island Inn, which is actually run by the Shorefast Foundation. Now, they hire locals to work in the inn. Locals actually catch and grow and forage much of the food that's served to guests. They actually build the furniture used to furniture the rooms. They're making the quilts that go on the beds. Their mandate as a foundation is to preserve and interpret the unique heritage and culture of Fogo Island and share it with the world. And I can tell you folks, they are well known, and I'd say their biggest portion of guests is actually people coming from all over the world. Another example we have here is the Evergreen Environmental Corporation, which is a social enterprise here that employs people recovering from mental illness. They run recycling depots where people drop off bottles and cans. They handle commercial fiber recycling. They're helping to implement electronics recycling, and they're doing all of this work, all this amazing work, while helping people in need who are trying to overcome these workplace barriers. So the question is, what is government's role in all of this? And I think our role is to encourage and to nurture these sorts of initiatives. Our job is to listen. Our job is to support. So we had a municipal government come to us, and they had a problem with wastewater from a fish farm. Again, our job there, we help with funding to provide that solution. Now they have the equipment. They extract the organic waste. Is no longer waste at all. It is used as compost. I think we recognize that great ideas are so many, and how can we use them to further enhance this economy that's so necessary to us? It's not always for us to lead the initiatives. I mean, I'm a firm believer that we are not necessarily the driver. Our job is to be a partner, and our job is to support the initiatives that are being brought forward by communities, by community leaders across this province. And again, they make the province, our entire country, and the world a better place to live, to work, to do business. On that note, I'll stop talking now. I'm very happy to be on what I think is an amazing panel, and just looking through the chat, just great to see people from all over the place. It's pretty cool. So I want to thank the organizers for letting me be a part of this today. I want to thank our premier for letting me take this on. And I really look forward to hearing from everybody and collaborating with everybody. There may be challenges, but I'm a big believer that we have a lot of opportunities ahead of us as well. On that note, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your intervention. And we are very grateful for having Newfoundland Labrador here at Island Innovation with us. Now we go with our second speaker. We have Ms. Rachel Ramsey, Program Manager, Advancing Circular Economy, the ACE facility at the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund. And we are very grateful because the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund has been with us ever since our first Virtual Island Summit back in 2019, sponsoring this event. So, Rachel, the floor is all yours. Rachel?
All right, confirming that you're seeing the slides okay, Christian, and you're hearing me all right?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
All right. Good to go. Thank you very much, Christian, and thank you very much to the Island Innovation team. As you mentioned, the CBF has been collaborating with you for some time, and so thank you for having us at your events this week. Special acknowledgement, to my fellow speakers joining me to discuss what the circular economy can look like for us in our small island spaces this week. And so today it is my absolute pleasure to be with you, and I hope to discuss a bit about the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, and then more specifically the ACE facility on advancing the circular economy in the Caribbean, where we are actively working to realize circular economy solutions in our region. So a bit about the CBF. Established in 2012, the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund is a regional environmental fund whose objective is to provide a sustainable flow of funds to support activities that contribute to conservation, protection, and maintenance of biodiversity in the Caribbean region. So the CBF currently works with 14 countries in our region via 3 main programs as it is right now. These are our climate change program, the conservation finance program, and the nature-based economies program under which the ACE facility lies. To date, the CBF is involved in the financing and execution of over 75 projects via these mechanisms involving an endowment fund and 2 sinking funds in the region. All right. The CBF's nature-based economies program, as mentioned, aligns directly with the organization's goal to ensure continuous funding for conservation and sustainable development with a focus on the blue economy. And here the program is seeking to improve sustainable business practices, prioritize the elimination of waste, optimize resource use, and reduce marine litter in the insular Caribbean. So a bit on the ACE facility. So the ACE facility focuses on the introduction of circular economy principles, which contribute to nature-based solutions to ensure materials never become waste and that nature is regenerated. So the facility seeks to address marine conservation issues in the region, which surrounds the impacts of marine litter due to improper waste management practices. The key results that we anticipate include operationalization of the facility as a financing mechanism for circular economy interventions, the implementation of circular economy measures that achieve measurable reduction in marine litter, and strengthening the key capacities and awareness raising and capabilities of the region as it relates to circular economy principles and methods. Currently, the facility will bring interventions to 9 countries in the region via funding from the German Development Bank, the KfW. So the facility was initiated as a 6-year fund in 2022, and it's set up under the umbrella of the CBF as a US $28 million sinking fund. The facility will award grants through calls for proposals and is expected to finance approximately 20 individual projects until the end of its operations in 2028. Excuse me. The projects are expected to apply circular economy principles to avoid waste from entering the marine environment or remove marine litter. So, under the facility, we're looking at sustainable, innovative interventions that will, 1, promote and apply principles of circular economy to minimize and prevent waste from entering the marine environment. We'd be looking at the removal of marine litter, the demonstration of financial feasibility and continuity beyond the grant funding period, and strengthening our existing partnerships that can promote circular economy principles in the Caribbean region. When we talk about those interventions that are looking at minimizing and preventing waste from entering the marine environment, so we're closing the loop, we're looking at improving the design and production of products that will demonstrate the effective use of alternative materials. We're looking at contributing to the durability, reusability, upgradability, reintegration of material, demonstrating the use of recycled contents in products while ensuring the effective performance and safety considerations. And then overall, we understand that there is a need here to give consideration to improving the integrated waste management systems to minimize that leakage of litter into the marine environment. Overall, we understand that, these principles are difficult to demonstrate or activate. For example, we would have seen recent publications from Lego at their recent announcement on how they are no longer able to make their bricks using recycled plastic bottles in order to maintain the quality of their products. But we remain realistic and optimistic, rather, and looking for innovative, realistic solutions that we can pilot and then further expand in the region. In terms of the interventions to remove marine litter, we're keen to explore solutions that will monitor and remove and recover litter, example, ghost gear, the detection of abandoned and derelict vessels, or those interventions that can prevent the discharge into the marine environment, which can include infrastructural development at coastal waste management sites or litter capture systems. In terms of financial feasibility, as mentioned, we're keen to see those projects ensuring that they operate financially independent by the end of the projects. And this can include moving forward with charge systems, deposit response schemes. This can also look at the implementation of extended producer responsibility schemes in the region, where we increase the accountability of importers, distributors, retailers, and create a financially feasible circular economy for us. Right? The facility will also look at the development and implementation of awareness and education initiatives at all levels. So here we're looking at gender mainstreaming, looking at vulnerable communities. The informal sector is particularly important in the waste management sector. Policymakers would be given consideration here in youth. The initiatives also, which promote a multi-stakeholder approach for marine litter management, will be considered here, taking the point that the minister made that, the public sector plays a role, but, the partnerships is where we might see more tangible outputs and realistic interventions being implemented in our small island developing states. All right, the CBF will implement the ACE facility stakeholder engagement plan to support with the objective of strengthening the capabilities of awareness raising in the region. For example, we're in discussions with the Latin American and Caribbean Circular Economy Coalition and how that could look. And we're also looking at the other initiatives ongoing and planned to collaborate and synergize within the region. Briefly, in terms of where we are right now, we're in the process of establishing the ACE Facility Committee that will comprise regional and international experts with marine conservation, waste management, and circular economy expertise that will support us and provide technical backstopping throughout the execution of the facility. We're working on scoping the facility, stakeholder engagement in the coming months to then move towards the first call for proposals in the middle of 2024, June 2024. Just in closing, I'd like to reiterate that we should remain cognizant that our current consumption patterns and economic models are not sustainable. The promise of a circular economy is an alternative path different to what we are on right now, and it's a path that we need to take a vested interest in advancing. We need to look at economies that are restorative or regenerative by intention and by design. Recent projections show that transitioning to a circular economy for us can add $1 trillion to the global economy by 2025, prevent 100 million tons of waste and generate 100,000 jobs. And we recognize climate change synergies as mentioned, where the transitions can also remove up to 350 million tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So regionally, in closing, we remain committed to advancing and collaborating with the regional and international interventions that will support us in transitioning from this linear to circular economy. And with that, thank you so very much for your time, and please feel free to reach out to us if you have questions, comments, or any ideas in terms of how we can move forward in a realistic manner. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that enlightening presentation, and thank you to everyone at the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund. We will now have Leila Teixeira, Marine Pollution Coordinator at Biosfera. Leila.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invite. It's great to be here, just speaking with you a little bit about what we're facing in Cape Verde. So I will just give you a brief review of what's happening right now in Cape Verde and what Biosfera as an NGO is trying to do to address the issues around circular economy. So Okay, so Cape Verde is a 10-island archipelago in the African continent. And one of the main things that you should know about Cape Verde is that, one, almost everything is imported here. Two, the main population lives mostly from fishing and tourism. So it's a very low income country, and we have a lot of substantial problems around that. So it's a country that still has a lot of problems around waste management, around sanitary problems. So most of the country still doesn't have sanitation. So we're still facing some pretty basic problems, some basic needs that are not met yet. So in my opinion, that makes it hard for us to talk about sustainability, environment, and circular economy. So here in Cape Verde, so you can understand the dimension of the problem, we stay in the middle of the North Atlantic Gyre, which is a place in the ocean where the waste accumulates in a circular way. And what happens is that because of the Canary Current, that it's just above Cape Verde, all of our beaches receive tons and tons of waste every year. This waste is not from Cape Verde, it's waste from all over. We have waste from America, from Europe, from Africa, from Asia also. So we deal with not only our own waste, the waste that we import in the products that we buy, but also the waste that comes to Cape Verde through the ocean and through the marine currents. And this is a very special problem. It's a very big problem because Cape Verde is a very important nesting site in the Atlantic for the marine turtles. So as you can imagine, when you have a beach that looks like this one that I'm showing you right now, the turtles cannot nest. So something must be done in order to address this kind of issues. Another big problem is that we do not have any kind of waste treatment facilities in the islands. So everything goes to an open landfill and is burned, being it plastic, paper, or metal. So everything goes to the open landfill, is burned in the open air. You have a population that lives inside the landfill. So it's an issue that has a lot of layers and it's very hard to address. But Biosphere, being an NGO, we work mostly in conservation. So we work in the conservation of sea turtles, sharks, rays, geckos. And on my side, I'm working on the marine pollution department. This is the most recent department that we created in our NGO. It has only 2 years old, but we try to create it because of the problems that we were seeing that the waste was creating to the species that we're trying to protect. And because of all these issues that Cape Verde has as a country and all of its context, that it's not really easy to develop these kind of things, one of the main goals and our strategy is to try to create and develop products in Cape Verde with Cape Verdean resources, or in this case, waste, because what I'm about to present you is made out of circular economy principles, and try to give the population alternatives in order for them to stop using disposables and so many plastics. Because one of the things that we started to see in the coming years is that a part of the population begin to have the ability to buy disposables. So it's like up until now, they didn't have any money to buy disposables, so everything would be reusable. And now they do. So for them, it's like, it's really, really hard because it's a mentality thing. So for them, it's good to buy disposables because now they can. So this is really hard and tricky for us to also work with. How can we tell them they can't, because they see all the other countries around the world doing it? So it's a very delicate issue. And what we are trying to do is to create alternatives to these disposable plastics made from circular economies. So in the image on the first one, you see a shopping bag that is made out of old jeans. Okay, in the second one, it's a bread bag that is made out of old fabrics. So everything was about to be disposed to go to the landfill, and we use it in order to create new products. And in the last one, I think it's the most amazing one. It's a bag made out of old fishing nets from local fishermen. So we are working with local fishermen in order for them to donating us their old fishing nets, and then we are transforming them into bags. So we are trying to create this relationship with them as well, in order for us to be able to show them that sometimes with what they perceive as waste is actually a resource. So that's a little bit what we are trying to do. Also, because we don't have any waste treatment in the islands, we are also creating a pilot project in plastic recycling, but aiming at recycling post-consumer plastic that to stop it from go to the landfill and to the ocean, and not plastic from the ocean. Meaning we are not transforming marine litter because we know the issues and the implication that it has. It can be dangerous also for the workers that we have at the factory. And our goal with this is mostly create awareness, because it's a very small pilot project. We cannot recycle all the waste that the island produce, but towards this we are trying to also show local companies and the governments that it's possible to recycle some of the plastic that we are producing here in Cape Verde, even though that none of it is produced in the island, everything is imported. So I think that in all of the islands, because Cape Verde has 10 islands, 9 of them are habitated, we have some local projects that are addressing these kinds of issues, which is actually great from my perspective, but I think we still have a big way to go. And I think we need more commitment from local governments and local entities, because it's something that it's starting to be addressed now. So it's not something that people are aware about. So if you go to talk to someone about circular economy, they won't know what it is. Even in local governments, it's something that it's not easy to address. So I think that Biosphere as an NGO has a big role in trying to address this kind of issues and trying to create these alternatives and show that it's possible to live in a world with less waste. I think there are still some challenges, and the first one is from the local governments. I think that there should be more policies, more willingness from the government in order to create solutions to address the waste problem in Cape Verde and to create real solutions towards circular economy, because we know it is much wider than what we are doing, but we have limited capacity. So we are doing what we can, just trying to inspire as we can. But actually, we believe that the government should have a bigger role in this. So I think this is my take. I thank you all for listening to me, and I stay at your disposal if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila, for your wonderful presentation, and we will cover questions in the Q&A later after the presentations conclude. We now go with our final panelist, Christy Metes, co-founder of Plastic Beach Party. Christy, the floor is all yours.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this super interesting panel and being able to share a little bit of our story from Aruba in the Caribbean. I think we share a lot of the, not all, but some of the challenges mentioned in the previous presentation in Cabo Verde, where we also are a tourism dependent island, and we lack a lot of the infrastructure for waste. And we also get a lot of waste on our beaches from the ocean, as I think a lot of our islands do. Less, I suppose, than Cabo Verde being in the middle of a gyre. So, but I still thought we are also doing a lot of similar things. So I think that was super interesting to see. the connection between the islands. So I wanted to start with kind of this graph from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I think a lot of us in the circular economy landscape have seen it before. The numbers might be a little bit outdated, but basically most plastic really doesn't get recycled, right? And since China stopped accepting a lot of plastic, the situation in a lot of places has actually gotten worse. We see a very high percentage leaking into the ocean, and a very, very small percentage in closed loop recycling, right? Where it's actually displacing the demand for plastic. The leakage into the ocean is a major issue for small island states. And for most of my life, this has been our landfill in Aruba, right? It's right by a beach in a mangrove forest. It was often on fire. There was no really barrier between the landfill, the pile, and the beach. This area is actually called Parakeet Forest, Berkietenbos, because it's historically a big mangrove. Luckily, I mean, I can say that at the beginning of this year, this landfill was officially closed. So we're finally no longer taking our waste nationally to this landfill, which I think is an important step in progress. So this is our current landfill. As you can see, it's still coastal. It's basically across the street from the previous one. And it is in a previous mine that was used for mining limestone. So it is a very porous area. The square bags that you see piled, those are the trash that is now compacted and wrapped in plastic. So it is not really a sanitary landfill. Nonetheless, it's progress from where we were. We also started implementing measures as an island to reduce the inflow of plastic. So first in 2017, we implemented a plastic bag ban, so that when you go to a supermarket, you don't get these flimsy plastic bags anymore. Unfortunately, these have recently been replaced with a lot of spun woven polypropylene bags. So those bags that look like fabric, but are actually plastic and actually release a lot of microplastic. And they're now trying to see how they can also cover that. They've also in 2020 implemented a single-use plastic ban, which replaced a lot of the food containers, like the clamshells and cups that you would get, straws, all of these things, forks and spoons, at takeaways with cardboard, bamboo, that kind of material. And interestingly, it also banned a lot of bioplastics because a lot of it cannot be processed locally, or also hasn't been proven long-term impacts thereof, like in the ocean. So I think that was also pretty progressive. Again, there are a lot of challenges with implementation. We know a lot of this material does have like a lining, but I think it is a lot of progress and also reducing the amount. And for us, as Plastic Beach Party, we collect plastic and develop products kind of similar to the example you guys saw a minute ago. So we did see a huge change in the amount of plastics coming in. So we can also see the impact of these policies on the import side. So again, this from the Ellen MacArthur report on the new plastics economy. We can see that there are several areas of the problem for plastics, right? So when you look into the issue is not that the technology isn't there to recycle plastic. The technology has been there since the 80s for mechanical recycling. A lot of the problems are that the economy is not there for it. Like it's hard to recycle plastic at the same quality and then do it at the same time for the same price point as virgin plastic. This issue is further exacerbated because plastic is a petroleum product and the petroleum industry is heavily subsidized in trillions, right? So when we're talking about stop fossil fuels, we're also talking about stopping plastic. Additionally, there's a lot of issues with a lot of the ways in which plastic has been implemented. And this is partially a policy that has been developed from the plastics industry itself, is that you as a consumer carry all of the responsibility, and then you pay a deposit upfront and you get it back. What that actually means is that you are kind of economically incentivized to pick that product, right? Because you get money from it. Even though you pay it upfront, from the consumer perspective, it's like, well, I'll get money back for that. Especially in poorer countries. But I've seen it even in richer countries in Europe, where I studied in the Netherlands. It creates this mental concept of like, oh, this material is valuable. And it's really not, right? Like, no one wants your trash. That's not really, a great thing that you're giving to someone else. So the economics around plastic don't actually encourage anyone to reduce their use, even the economics around recycling. So what we did, we didn't have anything in Aruba for processing plastic. It was really hard to collect the amount to export it. And as a small foundation, we really didn't have the money to pay for a deposit scheme. So we kind of did some research and we're like, okay, how much would it cost for us to actually process the plastic? And Aruba is a heavily tourism-led economy. And then we just decided we'll ask, is anybody willing to pay what it would cost us to collect, sort, clean plastic and have it then at a point where we can process it using the open source precious plastic machines. And that means there's a cost to plastic. The same way there's a cost to landfilling, the same way there's a cost to energy, to internet, to water, to most of our basic resources, you have to pay. And because it is more work than landfilling, it is also more expensive. The thing is that people in my community, people in Aruba, they do know that they should be recycling. And people are paying for it. So like, we're not huge. We're at no means, we're doing like almost 1%, almost 1 day of plastic a year. So like 1/3% of Aruba's waste. But what we're doing, we're able to do locally, and people are paying what it costs to do it. And all of our recyclers aim to reduce their waste, because just as your energy, just as your internet, just as your water, if you use more, you pay more. So the incentives are to reduce use. Additionally, we take the materials that are easier to recycle, cardboard and aluminum, for free. And so we work as an intermediate for those. So then the economics, we're trying to change them. So I think that is something that we're doing for the products we design. Then we make sure that the products are re-recyclable. So we don't aim to mix the plastics. Everything is single stream. They're long-term use. So we're looking at products that we think can be used for 5 to 10 years. We're looking at plastic intensive products. So a lot of our products use like 40 water bottles for one clipboard, right? And then we're looking at products that can replace virgin plastics. We see so many innovations that are actually putting plastic where it wasn't already. Right. And if we think back to the first graph of the circular economy, like where the plastic actually goes, most of it is not displacing virgin plastic. And it's actually making inroads when you can't actually meet that new demand for plastic for new areas in virgin plastic. And we definitely don't want that. Right. So we're replacing virgin plastic. And then we try to make products that are relatively high value. Again, when you buy something and you spend a little bit of money on it, you're less likely to treat it as a disposable product. So we're trying to make that type of product. Additionally, our factory is solar powered. We set it up with a lease system, which was really nice. So it didn't cost a lot of money upfront. We bought a secondhand electric leaf. We set it up with a trailer for our collection. So all of our collection is also solar powered, and all of our machines are open source. We use the precious plastic designs, which I think are the same ones that they're using in Cabo Verde, because I recognize the aesthetic. These are fully open source and you can build them fairly cheap. We asked our community to invest in us to create this capacity. So we actually, when we started, we crowdfunded $5,000 and then build them together with a technical high school. So yeah, they're pretty doable. We have them initially set up at our house. So what have we built? So we built public infrastructure, trash cans, benches, lecterns, plant pots. We also have shading for buildings to block some of the sun coming in. We've built like custom electrical outlets for some offices, for Digicel, which is also very active in island states, signs, sunglasses, lamps, polystyrene we process into bean bags. We use curtains from hotels that are also plastic and not very recyclable, and sew those into bean bags. They're very popular in schools. So we have hotels, schools, offices, households, all recycling with us. So I think that's pretty great. We started a beach litter program that's sponsored by the Aruba Tourism Authority, the Aruba Airport Authority, and the Aruba Hotel and Tourism Authority, to collect litter also from the beach and have that recycled. And in this process, we've collected more than 24 tons of plastic, and we've already actively recycled more than 5 tons of plastic into new products, and we're constantly developing new processes, looking at new partnerships to process more of this plastic as it comes in. So that's a little bit of our trajectory and what we're trying to do to process the plastic locally, and also like lead to a reduction in use. Thank you. If you have any questions, my email and our website is on the page.
Thank you so much, Christy. And I would like to ask all of our panelists to come back with your videos and audio on as we commence the Q&A section of this session. Wonderful presentations, everyone. So thank you so much. And before we go with some of the questions that our esteemed audience has prepared for us, I did have some questions for you. So any of you can take them. And if you have different approaches or responses, you are free to also participate. My first question would be, some islands are very isolated geographically. It's not the same like Caribbean islands that are somewhat close to one another, right? That they could share some resources, but it's not the same in Cape Verde, for example. It's not the same in other islands, especially in the Pacific, that are very isolated geographically. They have unique challenges and opportunities. What would be your advice for these islands when transitioning to circular economies? What is it that they can do that transforms that isolation into opportunity? Anyone is free to take that question and answer.
I think it's a difficult question to answer, actually, because the islands are so small and they are so unique. For example, here in Cape Verde, it's nine habitated islands, and each island is a small country in itself. So it's really, really hard to try to answer that question. But I think that for me, the intake was try not to follow into greenwashing techniques. It's what we are seeing, that it's happening in a lot of parts of the world. We're trying to create circular economy products and services that are actually just to show off, to sound better. And I think that small island states should not at all costs go towards those directions. So I think that's my intake.
Thank you, Leila. Anyone else wants to add something to Leila's point? Right. Yes, Christy.
I think a benefit of the small island state is that it's harder to hide, right? So a lot of times I'll go to big countries, and because there is a recycling program in the city, people have the impression like it's all actually getting recycled, and it's not. And that type of lack of transparency it doesn't happen on islands. Even if on paper there's lack of transparency, the island is small, and if it's being piled somewhere, people know. And I think that keeps us more on a local level honest and aware of the problems that we are experiencing.
Yes, but one note that I wanted to add to your intervention is that we can stop calling small island development states like that. There was a previous session that we had earlier today, and they coined a term that is large ocean state, right? Because sometimes these islands have more territory in the ocean than in land itself. So I think we can make it work, right? And if we consider all islands to be large ocean states, perhaps they will, the big countries, let's say, will take us more seriously, right? So I think that that's the approach that we can take as well. I have another question for our panel. How can circular economy principles be integrated into our traditional island industries? And there are many examples that we can go with: tourism, agriculture, fisheries, to promote sustainability. What would be your recommendation in this case for any island around the globe? And all of you are free to take this question.
I'm okay to start, and I think it's gonna come back to the point that our minister made with the involvement of the local communities and taking ownership of the interventions that we try to implement. Yeah.
If I could jump in for that, I think one of the things that we have found, and in many cases we have small companies, local leaders, we find that incentivization is a way to do that. We've come out with different funding opportunities. When we talk, especially when we talk about transition, when we talk about green or emission reduction, we have to find a way to incent the companies to do this, to reward companies that are trying to do this. And we've always seen examples of this, but we're especially seeing it now whether we're talking about the fishery industry here, which was something our province was built on over 500 years. But more and more we're seeing it, especially I'll look at the mining side, which again, we happen to have a number of the minerals here that are necessary for batteries, wind turbines, things like that. What we are doing is incenting companies there and to find a way to get the new technology that's needed to make less waste of the product that they're pulling out. We need to find a way to reduce that, to get more out of that rather than traditional tailings and things like that. It's better for everybody, and we're finding more that is usable. So that's a couple of things. We might not necessarily have the idea, but we have the ability to make the investment. And I don't feel that it's a spend. I feel it's an investment that we're going to get multiple returns on across the board.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your participation. And we have questions from our audience here in the Q&A box. We go with, hope that I'm pronouncing this correctly, Abilit Kumar Bosi. What steps are being taken to control marine pollution in our regions, especially with regards to safe disposal of plastic waste?
Maybe I could start with the Caribbean. In the Caribbean, we have quite a few interventions, a wide range of interventions. Some are upstream with the ban of several single-use plastic streams. We have seen the successful implementation of several take-back systems, some waste management initiatives and source separation, etc. The overall constraints, I think, remain the enforcement of some of the policies and regulations. Excuse me. Sustainable financing continues to be a constraint with the interventions that we have. And overall, we also need to improve the enabling environment, to continue with a multi-pronged approach to ensure that our interventions are sustainable so that they're effective and efficient in the long run.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Does anyone else want to add to Rachel's point? All right. Leila, we have a question for you directly from Sibel Fonseca. What impacts are well, let me try to rephrase this question. What are the impacts that are being set on the biosphere, having the island's environmental preservation? In your opinion, can the public be engaged to, quote unquote, get down to work?
Thank you for the question. So in recent years, Biosfera is conducting some studies in order for us to be able to have data about the impacts of our work. So for now, only for the beach cleanings, and we know that our work is of the utmost importance for the nesting of the sea turtles. So if we didn't do these cleanups, if we didn't remove the waste every year, every month, the turtles wouldn't be able to nest and the populations would decrease. So that's something that we can measure very highly, the impact of what we are doing. We can also, because we work in conservation of marine species, we also have data about the increase of the populations in the marine reserve of Santa Luzia and in São Vicente. So I think, and Biosfera is only 17 years old, so it's not that old organization. So, but I think that in the coming years, it's been really easy for us to see the impacts that our work is having on the species that we are trying to protect. What people can do, they can join us. We are always open for people to come and volunteer, to come and help us, to come and join us on beach cleanings, to come and join us on conservation work. So we are a very open organization to everyone that is able, that wants to come and just join us in our activities.
Thank you so much, Leila. And I'm just recalling of something very important. And CBF actually had an event on circular economy previously this year. We co-organized that event. And taking a look at your participation, it's making me think, what policies and regulations can governments and local authorities implement to incentivize these circular economy practices? And Mr. Parsons, I believe that you have some examples from Newfoundland and Labrador about regulations that are positive towards circular economy. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is something we're trying to do more of, and half the challenge, I will point out some, is that, you know, we are one province in a federation of 10 provinces, 3 territories. So sometimes the challenge, and a lot of this falls under our own jurisdiction, but there are times when we have to deal with the federal government as it relates to, you know, from a regulatory point of view. But I will say that the federal government here shares, I think, shares some of the perspectives that we have here when it comes to, you know, reduce, reuse, recycle, and again, incenting companies to find this way. I think this sort of ties in. I was looking at one of the questions here, talking about how do we sort of engage those levers, I mean, or awaken the political will. We had to continue to find a way to get through to people that if we don't do this, it's not myself who's going to face this. I've got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old that they need to see what we're doing here. So we had to continue, and this, I guess this sounds sort of cliche, if we don't find a way to engage our school system and teachers and educators on this, we're not going to see the full benefit. That's one thing. The second part of that is sometimes I think the challenge is I'm one department of 14 to 15 across the gamut here, and in many cases it's not one particular group. We have to find a way to continue to operate through, get through the silos that exist, and realize that the responsibilities don't rest with just one group or another, that they are, you know, multi-jurisdictional, cross borders, cross departments. I guess, you know, that's just a couple off the top. It's such a big issue that it's sort of hard to break it down to just a couple of points, but that's the couple things that I see as challenging up in our neck of the woods.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your intervention. And there is also some questions here on the Q&A box that I'm just going to compile into one because they speak about the same issue. deep seabed mining. It's becoming a growing threat. What can we do to get our leaders in the world to be on the same page and pursue circular economy instead of these practices?
I don't mind jumping in there if it's okay. Again, as one of these, I hate to use the term for myself sometimes as one of the leaders, but the reality is I lead a department that is responsible for mining, and mining has something, it has a long history here in their province, and it has a profound impact. That the royalties that we receive are what help pay for our social systems, our education system, our healthcare, you name it. And so I'm cognizant of that impact. But at the same time, I will say here, I don't think there's a social license that exists to move from onshore to offshore. I just do not think that is there. And I guess I'm lucky to live in that jurisdiction. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the populace to inform decision makers on what's acceptable or what's not. But at the same time, we have to find a way. Look, this is where investments from a government perspective into technology and opportunities to engage circular economy, to engage recycling. And we need less of a need, less of a reliance on these things. And it's going to require intervention and investment from every level of government. And maybe I think a little more education on the impacts of moving into offshore, which again boggles my mind. I think people need to realize what those impacts are long term.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your response. And thank you everyone here on our panel that are typing away some answers in the Q&A box. But we are a little bit over time, but this is an important discussion, so we're going to keep it going for a few minutes. We have a question here on the Q&A addressed to Laila. What initiatives is your organization taking for Santo Vicente and Antao?
So I just spoke a little bit about it before, but in Santo we are only doing awareness sessions and educational sessions within schools for kids. So we are trying to create this environmental awareness since a young age. So because even though that the islands are very much closer to each other, Santo has its own environmental organization, its own NGO. So we do not like to overstep our work. So in conservation works, it's the Santo NGO that does those conservation works, and Biosfera only does the awareness ones. In São Vicente, it's the same. We do awareness, we do beach cleanups. We are working with local communities in our sustainable fishing program. We are also working towards creating local marine protected areas. So we have a wide range of programs and projects. In order, all of them, the thing that they have in common is the protection of the ocean and our marine resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laila, for your response. And I want to close with a question for the panel. How can islands collaborate regionally and internationally, regardless of where you are located, from the Pacific to the Caribbean, to the Indian Ocean, to the Atlantic? How can we collaborate? And I'm thinking about this summit, the Virtual Island Summit. This is a way that we collaborate, right? We share our thoughts and hope that people find this as a way of educating themselves into practices that are being shown. But what else can we do to collaborate between each other in islands around the globe to pursue sustainable development through circular economy?
Well, if I may start, I think one of the things that we are trying to do here in Cape Verde is first engage with all of the NGOs in all of the islands, because only one NGO just working in one of the islands is not making any difference. So we are trying to work all together. And Also, with other islands, we have some organizations, partner organizations in other islands. And I think it's really important for us to have access to other experience, knowledge, to other ways of doing the work they were trying to do, to understand how are they facing the same challenges that we are. So I think it's really, really important to have this kind of openness to talk to other associations, to other islands, to see the problems that they are facing, how they are engaging local populations, because I think that sometimes when we hit a bump in the road, someone before us already did it. And it's so much easier if we just have these strong connections that allow us to move forward these problems in a much faster way, just through this, all of these connections. So I think it's great to have the ability to create these strong connections. Thank you.
If I could jump in there, I know what it's like to sometimes feel like we're isolated because we are on an island. In our case, we deal with a country that is, joined together, and we're sort of physically disconnected. But I think opportunities like this, I think sometimes just hearing best practices from other people, and in many cases actually getting together and seeing what works, what doesn't work. And sometimes it's amazing, no matter where you go, we actually are facing the same exact things regardless of our positioning on the globe. So I just look at the chat there and I see that there's something coming up in the spring in Prince Edward Island. So I think that's a great opportunity. It's here in Canada. I will say it's the second cool. It's a beautiful spot, but it's only the second coolest island in Canada, right after Newfoundland and Labrador. But that would be a great spot to gather, because I do think there is strength in numbers, and I think there's strength in learning what people face, and we're all more similar sometimes than we realize, no matter how far we are spread apart.
Thank you so much, Leila and Minister Parsons, for your responses. And indeed, we will see each other next year in Prince Edward's Island. I want to thank you, everyone, for your wonderful participations today. We had a remarkable panel. A lot of important things were mentioned here. I hope that everyone has enjoyed this session as much as I did moderating it. And thank you, everyone, for your participation. We have more sessions coming up in the Virtual Island Summit. And tomorrow we will have plenty more. Please do not miss the tourism session that we will have tomorrow. Looking forward to that session as well. And coming up today, we have a very interesting session in about 1 hour. That is the power of storytelling. It is going to be the virtual premiere of a documentary from Grand Cayman, right? And we are looking forward to that one as well. And as the minister mentioned, we will have an event in Prince Edward Island next year. It's going to be on May 2024, a 2-day in-person summit, and it's going to be all about global sustainable islands. And we're looking forward to attending and visiting Canada, and we hope that everyone who is able to join us there can participate in discussing solutions and advancements in sustainable energy. Our team members are posting information in the chat, so you can go to the URL there and find out more and register for that event. And with that, I bid you goodbye and wish you well in your endeavors. Thank you for attending. Thank you to our wonderful panelists again, and we will see each other on the next session. Bye, everyone.